Hi guys, hi girls, I'm Emily, and not so long ago, my life has taken a turn. I'm sure that all of you know about superheroes. Spider-Man has webs and the ability to climb walls. Iron Man is able to invent anything given the chance. I used to adore those characters because they could do all sorts of cool stuff. But not so long ago, I got a superpower of my own. I was 13 when it all started. I was just an ordinary, inconspicuous schoolgirl. I always studied well, but was too shy and had no friends. Truth be told, I never actually communicated to my classmates at all. Often, I sat alone during lunch break, and when I tried joining any company, nobody noticed that. The girls continued to talk to each other, as if I were never there. Usually I would stay in class during breaks, because no one ever bothered to invite me to play or take a walk. So I just sat there, wiping my tears and preparing for the next class. Physical education was my least favorite class, because no one ever wanted me in their basketball team or volleyball team. And on one rare occasion, I got to the playing field. I was only taken to fill the team. Besides, I'm not the brightest player, and my playtime usually ended with a basketball to the head, and that, I assure you, was very painful. The situation at home wasn't much better. You see, I had 2 sisters and a younger brother. Therefore, my parents were usually too distracted to pay attention to me. My brother is quite a hyperactive child, and he must be constantly monitored so that he doesn't break anything. Mary is my older sister. She is very smart and well-read. My sister is a regular participant of a number of annual school competitions. So Mom and Dad are very proud of her. They hope that she becomes famous in academia and bring honor and glory to our family. My younger sister Patricia is a restless but very talented girl. My parents have high hopes for her. They are sure that Pat has all the makings to become a star someday. She is 12 and she already looks like a movie actress. She's tall and slender with large blue eyes and curly blonde hair. She doesn't only look like an absolute doll, she also has some considerable talent. Pat is already a school theater star, and all her peers are in love with her. And then there's me, an awkward child to say the least. I'm not smart enough to be in academia, and not beautiful enough to become a star. Besides, I'm quite self-sufficient and need no extra care, so my family members aren't actually paying much attention to me. Therefore, I just come home, grab some food, and go to my room day after day. Fortunately, each of us has a room of his or her own, so that we can have some precious time alone. Only I am alone at all times. As you can see, I always have those big headphones, dark makeup, and brown hair. I'm not a goth, though. I was pretty comfortable with such a life until something happened to me. Somehow, I managed to fall in love. For real. For the first time in my life, and my feelings were so strong that I could not imagine a day without that boy. His name was Robert, and he was from a nearby school. He was just recently transferred to our town, and I was immediately smitten by him. You see, Rob was the true embodiment of male beauty, a tall, slender, muscular, dark-eyed brunette. He overshadowed everyone around him. I could not stop staring at him when he was nearby, but the teachers seated him next to Linda, the most beautiful girl in our class. She was sure to charm him soon, and I obviously didn't want that to happen. So you see, I was almost forced to act. I couldn't just allow Linda to take Rob. Yes, she was beautiful, slim, and smart, but I was sure she would never love him as much as I did, and I experienced love in its purest form. So I came up with a plan and brought my only friend Rita into the process. She is just as mousy as me. We often walked together after school, sometimes did homework at her place, and sometimes sit in a cafe after school. Rita also had a number of brothers and sisters, so her parents paid as much attention to her as mine did to me. The first step of my plan was to make Rob like me. I haven't actually made the second or the third step, because I already had problems with the first. You see, I had absolutely no idea how to impress a boy. So Rita tried to help me. She found out Linda was going to host a cool party the following weekend. Linda's parents were out of town. They went on a visit to her grandma. and Linda was left all alone at their own great big mansion. Naturally, she hosted a grand party. Now Rita and I had to somehow sneak into it. No one cared to invite us. I decided to act and went to talk with Linda the very next day. I spent 5 full minutes standing near her desk until one of her friends pointed at me. Linda asked me what I wanted with a disgruntled voice. I asked her for 2 invitations for Rita and myself. Linda pulled a face, but allowed us to come and turn back to her friends. That short conversation was very stressful for me, and I had to take a deep breath afterwards. Just at that moment, Rob entered the class and sat near Linda. She looked at him with eyes of love, and he looked back. That was very painful to watch. So I looked away, but I was still determined to make him notice me. And then the weekend came. I told my parents that I would be back late, or even the next morning, but they paid no attention to my words. Mom continued with her TV quiz, and Dad just sat in the kitchen, absent-minded. Anyway, I put on my own bright dress, that is, my only dress that wasn't black or gray, and left the house. Rita was already waiting for me at the door. She and I were both scared, because we had never been to parties. The road to Linda's house was a real challenge to both of us. Funny thing is, we met a lot of our classmates along the road, but no one said hello. They behaved like we were non-existent. But that wasn't really important. The only one important to me was Rob. We went through the open door and felt as if we'd left the known world. Some of the boys and girls were dancing. Others were hugging and kissing each other nearby. Several pouring strong drinks, and some even organized a rap battle with very real bets. Everyone had a lot of fun. Rita and I went to the second floor unnoticed, and there we found Rob already with Linda. I stood next to them for some time and listened to them talking, but they didn't appear to see me. It seems like there was a wall between us. Finally, I got up the courage and lightly touched Rob's shoulder. He turned around and asked what I want. I hesitantly asked him to dance. Linda looked at me, bewildered. Then she and Rob exchanged glances and started laughing out loud. That was incredibly humiliating. I flew down the stairs and ran out of Linda's house. Once again, I was just an invisible girl for everyone around, even for the boy I loved. I came home in tears, but no one noticed my condition. My parents and siblings celebrated Mary's victory in the latest school competition. I ran into my room and locked the door. Now I was left all alone except for Yaki, my beloved fluffy white cat. So I just laid there, hugging Yaki for a long, long time, until the cat tried to escape my embrace. I let him go, then climbed onto the windowsill and looked at the stars. By that time, it was already dark. I looked at the stars and dreamed that someday, I would definitely become great. Someday, I would have a superpower that would shake the world. Rob would most definitely be impressed by it and love me 100%. I wished to be special, to be great, to be the one and only. They say that wishes made on a shooting star tend to come true. Well, my wish did come true, but in a very special way. Anyway, I wished to get a superpower. And at that very moment, Yaki jumped onto the windowsill. He looked at me, then at the shooting star, then again at me, and stood still. My cat has different colored eyes, and at that moment, they were also full of sparks. I felt mesmerized. I could not take my eyes off those sparks, so I just sat there, watching. Then I blinked and everything returned to normal. Yaki just sat there, fawning on me as usual. So I pet him, jumped off the windowsill, and went to bed. Unfortunately, I couldn't sleep for another 2 hours or so. I spent that time praying for a superpower. And when I finally fell asleep, I saw a dream about Rob. In a dream, we dated, and that was awesome. The morning started in a usual way. I woke up, got dressed, went down to the kitchen, and sat down at the table. Mom was cooking some pancakes, but she seemed not to notice me at all. At first, that didn't really surprise me. But then my sisters and brother came to the table. Mom fed them all, Even Dad managed to grab a pancake, but I was left without a breakfast. Besides, no one greeted me, even though they usually did. I felt very offended, so I got up, left the table, and went to school hungry. At school, I went to Linda and greeted her myself, but she jumped in surprise, asked who was there, looked through me and ran away in fear. I was so confused. That looked like a joke, but Linda's emotions were so very real. I decided to wash up just in case and went to the toilet. There I washed up, looked at the mirror, and saw no reflection whatsoever. I washed up once again, in case of hallucinations or a weird daydreaming episode, but the mirror reflected everything except me. I ran away from the restroom in horror, hitting several pupils on my way out. They got up and looked around, surprised as if they were hit by an actual ghost. I wasn't sure what to do. Maybe I was actually a ghost. Maybe I died at night and never really felt that? Yet then I leaned on a tree and my arm didn't pass through it. I concluded that I was actually alive but somehow unnoticeable. And then I remembered the shooting star and Yaki's eyes, and I understood everything. Somehow, I got what I wanted. Now I had an actual superpower. I was an invisible girl, Emily, the girl who recently became invisible. Unfortunately, life with superpowers proved quite challenging. So here I was standing by a tree, slowly realizing that I became invisible. As soon as I fully realized it, I felt really happy. I've been nobody for my entire life, and now I've got an extremely powerful gift. Just imagine how much you can do with such a power. Of course, I wasn't planning to use it to scare people, although it would be pretty funny on the hindsight. But I wanted to become famous. Soon, everyone would be talking about me for sure. The first thing I did was to hurry up to school. I skipped it that day due to my condition and really wanted to see who cared about that. I went right into our classroom, sat in the back row, and waited. Yet the majority of classmates gave zero crap about my absence. Guess I was already kind of invisible for them. So nobody cared. Only Rita noticed my absence and asked the teacher about it, but he just told her that I was probably skipping class or something and ordered her to sit down. Okay, enough proof of my classmates never caring about me. What about the teachers? They must have already noticed my mysterious absence. I left the classroom and went to the teacher's lounge. Well, some of them did remember about me, yet they immediately concluded that I must have skipped school because of hard homework or some similar reason. No one thought that I might have been ill or got in trouble. Now I felt really disappointed and angry. I really wanted to vent my anger, and I immediately thought of a perfect way to do so. It was a break, so no one stayed at the classroom. I returned there and made a huge mess. I stained the board with chalk and crumbled the remaining pieces on the chairs of my classmates. Then I poured water on the teacher's table and mixed it with earth from a flower pot. After that, I climbed onto the table, stomped there, jumped down, and ran several times around the class. Finally, I left some trails on the windowsill so that everyone would think that the troublemaker escaped through the window. Now I felt pleased with myself, returned to the back row, and waited for the bell. My classmates rushed in and immediately stopped by the surprise of what they saw. Then the teacher came. He became furious, reprimanded everyone present, and sent them all to the principal's office. I felt so happy at that moment. I really thought that it was a fitting punishment for not paying attention to my absence. Yet my job was not finished. You see, I still wanted to make up with Rob. So I ended up with a pretty insidious plan. Since I was invisible and did not know how long this condition would last, I needed to use it to the maximum value. I waited until the end of the lessons and saw Rob leaving school. Of course, I followed him all the way home. For the first time in my life, I entered someone else's home without any invitation. It felt quite thrilling, to be fair. I was going to see my beloved's bedroom, and maybe even catch a glimpse of him naked. It was truly a dream come true. So I slipped through the door while Rob entered his home, and then discovered that his family was quite rich. I haven't seen such a clean and comfy home before. Rob's mom could be mistaken for his older sister. She looks so young. She kissed him on the cheek and offered him a snack. But Rob just grabbed an apple and went to his room. Here it was, my holy of holies, Rob's room. The room was decorated in an elegant minimalistic style. White walls, a black bookcase full of books and magazines, a single bed with a neatly turned down black cover, almost no other colors except white and black. Quite stylish. Rob took off the shirt he wore at school. Of course, I suspected before that he had a gorgeous torso, but in reality, it looked even better. I almost fainted from his handsomeness, but I had to keep it together. I was invisible, of course, but not intangible. So I stood silently in the corner of the room so that Rob could go about his business without hitting me. Rob went on with his chores. He read a book, did his homework, called a friend, ate supper. Finally, it got late and my crush went to sleep. He took off his jeans, leaving only his underpants on, and went to bed. My whole body ached. Standing motionless for several hours straight was very hard. Now I moved away from the wall and silently walked over to Rob's bed. I squatted down next to him and watched him sleep softly. I really couldn't stop myself from touching his face, nose, lips, chin. First, I touched his nose with my fingertips, gently reached the lips and approached the chin. But then something happened that I definitely could not expect. Rob grabbed my hand while still asleep. Apparently, it happened instinctively. So Rob grabbed my hand and woke up abruptly. I froze in place with fear. Then he found the light switch while not letting go of my hand and switched it on. The bright light blinded me. Rob started looking around, breathing heavily and rapidly, still not letting go of my hand. He was so terribly frightened, and I didn't know what to do. Soon, he manned up and asked who was there. I was still paralyzed with fear and gave no answer. He squeezed my hand harder and harder and repeated the questions. In a strangled voice, I said, "It's me." Guess he wasn't expecting such an answer because he immediately let go, holed up in the corner and started screaming. Meanwhile, I retreated into the opposite corner of the room and put my hands over my ears. In a moment, Rob's mom raced into his room holding a frying pan. She ran to her son, trying to calm him down while Rob was telling her about an invisible assailant. Of course, his mom didn't believe him. She assumed that it was a nightmare, told him to drink some water, kissed her son, and went away. Rob slowly came to his senses, but he knew that I was real and not a dream. So he sat down on the bed and whispered, "Are you still there?" I nodded, then remembered that he couldn't see me. Went up to him and whispered back, "Yes." Rob recoiled but did not panic. Then he asked me whether I was a ghost or what did I want from him. I felt very brave, so I told him everything. Who I was, how I became invisible, and why I came to him. Well, I kinda expected him to laugh in my face again, as he did back then at Linda's party. But he listened to me carefully, nodded, thinking something through, and then he asked me for a kiss. That was unexpected for sure. Rob never paid any attention to me while I was nearby. But now when I was invisible, he immediately wanted to kiss me? I thought about it later though. At the moment, I was almost ecstatic. I really wanted to touch his full lips with mine and feel his breath on my skin. So we kissed and he even held me in his arms. After a long kiss, Rob grinned. He told me that it was fun to kiss a ghost, and it definitely would be something to tell at school the next day. But then he called me a great ghost, said that our kiss was just a cool dream and fell asleep like nothing ever happened. I couldn't believe that. My crush thought that it was all just a dream. A cool dream, worthy to brag about to his friends, but nothing more. I felt really humiliated. Silently, I opened the door of his room and ran away. The front door, of course, was closed, so I climbed out the window in the kitchen. On my way home, I contemplated that apparently the superpowers never made me better, stronger, or anything like that. All I got was some mischief at school and one stolen kiss. It was depressing. So there I was, alone on a night road, weeping, until I came across a kitten moaning plaintively, trying to get off the tree. I wiped away my tears and decided to help it. It turned out that I became not just invisible, but also much lighter. So I easily climbed up a tree and brought the kitten to the ground. And then I saw that a stranger boy was filming it all. I got home 10 minutes later and saw my whole family in a state of panic. Mom and Dad were calling their acquaintances, hospitals and morgues, and my sister called my classmates. Only my brother was not concerned about my absence by the slightest and spent the evening playing on his phone. Still, I felt pleased that my parents finally paid some attention to me. It was only because I disappeared, but still. Maybe they even decided that I ran away from home. Not everyone is capable of such a rash act, mind you. I entered my room smiling, hugged my cat Yaki, and went to bed. Rob's cruelty still haunted me, but in a few minutes, I managed to discard those thoughts and finally fell asleep. The next morning was a revelation. I went down to the kitchen and saw this. My mom, dad, and sisters, all with dark rings under their eyes due to a sleepless night, were watching something on their laptop. I came closer and saw a video where a kitten descended through the air to the ground without any outside help. It was actually the recording of Invisible Me, saving the poor creature. The video had already received 300,000 views. OMG! I became famous! My superpowers were actually working. Now I was able to help the needy just like Spider-Man, and I didn't even have to wear a mask to hide my identity. Being invisible had its own perks. I could even foil the criminal mastermind's plans by sneaking into their lairs right under their noses. Only that morning, I fully realized the extent of my powers. Although I was worried about my parents, I was in no hurry to reveal myself to them and possibly lose my abilities. Moreover, I still didn't know how to return myself back to a normal state, so I decided to act. I took my phone and went for a walk, hoping to help someone again. This time, though, I was going to record everything myself. The first person in need was an old man who lives on our block. He needs a walking stick to get around anywhere, but that day, the old man accidentally dropped it. He tried to pick it up, but without any success, because his back hurt. So I quickly switched on the phone's camera, hooked it on a nearby tree, picked up an old man's cane, and gave it back to him. He was very surprised and even backed away from it as if he had met a ghost. I just laughed and continued my journey through the town. That day, I lent a helping hand to 25 men and women and recorded everything. Then I ran home as if I got wings. Mom and Dad were still searching for me and looked really sad, but it was too early for me to blow my cover. So I snuck to my room, locked the door, and uploaded all the videos onto the internet. In just a few hours, those recordings went viral and received more than 450,000 views each. They even talked about me in the news. Now, everyone knew that there was an invisible man in the town helping the needy. So now I was some sort of local hero. It kinda sucked that they assumed me to be a man, but oh well. Then I realized how much my powers could influence people's lives. I finally became useful, needed, even famous. When I became invisible, the whole city, the whole country was talking about me. I became a superhero. But then I wanted to switch my powers back. You see, such an experience changed me for the better. Now I won't be old, cowardly Emily. I've become brave and resolute. Now I knew I could help people. But still, I didn't know one thing. I had no idea how to switch the invisibility off. Hi girls, it's me again, Emily, your friendly local superhero. The whole web's talking about my achievements. The Invisible One saved a kitten. The Invisible One helped a granny to cross the road. The Invisible One did so much good stuff. All those articles in the newspapers, YouTube videos, millions of likes and views, and all because of me. And after all, I uploaded 2 of those videos myself. I've got a number of fans on my tail. That's right, I've got fans now. Those guys and girls are hilarious. They are often 100% sure that I did something even if I wasn't even there. Suffice to say, my life finally got a purpose. I've become the girl I've always wanted to be. I'm famous. I'm loved by so many people and some even worship me. What's more to wish for? Well, I was sure that everything was finally going great until I came to the kitchen one morning. My sisters had already left for school. My brother was still sleeping. I saw only my mom and dad sitting there, discussing something. I became interested. I was sure they were discussing another search plan. I bet they were extremely worried. You see, I was already in the wilds for 5 days straight. They must have felt horrible. So I came closer to hear them talking. Just imagine how surprised I was when I heard that they were really discussing me, but in a very different way. They were talking about how weak and ungifted I was in every possible way. Dad told Mom that I was actually not great at all, and she shouldn't be worrying too much about my disappearance. Those were literally my father's words. And just to think how much I loved him. He was the only person in the world whom I really trusted. He was always so kind and caring. He always tried to support me, to cheer me up. He gave such nice advice. And now he told Mom that I was insignificant? At first, Mom just listened to him in silence. But then she actually agreed with Dad. She told him that it was all for the better. Now she said, they'd have much more resources to help my sisters to grow up powerful and strong. She even expressed her hope that my sisters would somehow bring glory to our family. Oh, I felt so angry. So it turned out that my sisters were to be glorious? Not me, the one who actually has superpowers and used them to help people. Ugh, how frustrating! I felt only anger, so I left home and ran to school. I really wanted to see Rita, my best and only friend. I was certain that she would never let me down and wouldn't stop telling the classmates about me. I knew that for sure. So I entered our classroom, took a place in the back row that was never occupied by anyone, and waited for my classmates to come in. The first to come into the classroom were Rob and Linda. Funny thing is, I didn't even feel any frustration. They clearly were dating, but I was done with Rob anyway, so whatever. And in a few minutes I saw Rita. But she didn't come to the classroom alone. She walked through the door talking to Helen, the girl she supposedly used to hate. At least Rita had told me that herself earlier. But now, my friend was cheerfully talking to her worst enemy. Rita must have lied to me. Curious, I left my place and went to that unlikely pair to overhear their conversation. And I was shocked by what I've heard. Rita told Helen about the things that I did when I was small. She described my mistakes as if those were the funniest things ever. Rita and Helen were actually making fun of me. It turned out that my greatest friend had already found someone to replace me, and she did that so fast. In fact, my disappearance didn't scare anyone at all. In just a few days, all my acquaintances got used to it and moved on with their lives. That's when I decided to get rid of my invisibility. Besides, I was really determined to change my life for the better. As soon as I became visible, I wasn't going to resume living as a mousy little thing called Emily. Not anymore. My adventure taught me that helping people felt great. Besides, I learned to be noticeable and had no intention to continue living my previous boring life. I was ready to prove my parents and my friends wrong. I was sure that I'd stay the superhero even after becoming visible. And of course, I'd keep helping people. Still, I didn't know for sure how to end my invisibility. Yet I remembered that I received the superpower after looking at shooting stars together with my cat, Yucky. At that moment, I made a wish. I wished to be famous and powerful, and that wish came true. Guess I needed to see a shooting star once again. Good thing shooting stars are quite common in the skies above our town. Now I just had to come back home and wait in peace for another shooting star. Unfortunately, no one wanted to open the door for me. I saw through the window that my mom was cooking something at the kitchen, and I knew that my dad and siblings also were at home, yet no one came. Finally, I noticed one of my sisters going out of the house. AFAIK! She was going to meet one of her boyfriends in secret, so I waited for Patricia to slip out of the house. I just had a moment to slip in, and I used my chance. Everything went perfect. Thank you, little sister. You weren't going to help me, yet you did, and it was all I needed. So I ran into my room, locked the door so that no one could interrupt me, hugged Yaki, and jumped to the windowsill. It was already 11 p.m. The sky was full of stars, so I just needed to wait for one of them to fall and then look at Yaki. You see, I was sure that he somehow helped me fulfill my wish, so I needed his help once again to reverse it. Finally, the perfect moment came. I hugged Yaki, closed my eyes, and made another wish. I wished to be visible once again, but also to become a stronger and better version of myself. Then I opened my eyes, looked at Yaki, and felt the magic in the air. My cat's eyes were full of sparks once again, and once again, I couldn't take my eyes off of those sparks. In a moment, I snapped out of that feeling, kissed my cat, and went to bed. I felt so very happy, and I was sure that the next day would change my life forever. In the morning, Yaki decided to lick my nose. I sneezed and woke up because of it. The sound was quite loud, but no one came to investigate. I got a bit afraid. Maybe this time, I became not only invisible, but also soundless? That would be pretty creepy. My mood worsened. Now, I was sure that my attempt to become a normal girl once again was unsuccessful. So I went downstairs and saw my mom. What's more important? She saw me too. At first she looked at me as if she saw a ghost, but then her eyes closed and she fainted. I was shocked. Everything went back to normal. I was visible once again. Hooray! In a moment, my dad came running to the noise of my mom's fall. His nerves were stronger than hers, so he didn't faint. He gave me a big hug and then went to go wake up Mom. And after that, all my siblings came out of their rooms to see me. They gave me so many hugs and kisses. And when Mom woke up, she brushed all of them aside, embraced me, and started crying. It was the best day of my life. For the first time in my life, I understood how much my parents and my siblings loved me. I forgot all my grudges, and I guess Mom and Dad forgot theirs too. Now we were all one big happy family. When all of us calmed down, I told my parents that the old plain Emily was no more. After that, my mom, my sisters, and I went shopping. We bought a lot of really cool stuff. Mom even helped me with a new style of makeup. And after shopping, all of us went to the beauty parlor. We spent a lot of money there, but it was all so much worth it. Now I became a stylish redhead with nice makeup and a perfect outfit. I wasn't a superhero anymore. Instead, I was a super Emily. And I intended to keep everything this way for many years to come. Soon, I decided to return to school. But before that, I realized one important thing. I was going to be a super Emily, not another Linda-like girl. Yes, I was now beautiful and resolute, but I still wanted to be kind and forgiving and didn't want to be basic. In hindsight, such a realization made me even stronger. My classmates' reaction surprised me. Some of them apparently decided that I was a vengeful ghost and got terribly afraid. But the others simply didn't recognize me and just wanted to get acquainted with a fabulous new girl. I really felt reborn. I moved through the school like a queen on a tour through her kingdom. When I entered my classroom, everyone was stunned. All of them got up in an instant. Even the teacher decided to greet me that way. Now I really felt as if I was an incredibly important person. Rita was the first who broke the spell. She ran up to me and gave me a nice big hug. Funny thing is, she was constantly looking into my eyes, as if trying to understand whether it was really me or just a clever imposter. The lesson was blown off. Everyone was asking me questions about my whereabouts. Even the teacher was really interested. I decided to be honest and told them that I was the invisible one. The class immediately went silent. Then I told each of my classmates how I helped their loved ones, described my adventures to the last detail, even told my peers about the things that no one managed to record. Everyone was shocked. I felt that they believed me, and it was a nice feeling indeed. Rob's eyes were glued to me. He clearly remembered our previous meeting. I looked right into his eyes, and he started blushing. I knew that he felt ashamed because of his careless words. Then all the kids bombarded me with questions. Everyone wanted to know how I felt when I was a superhero, what I was trying to accomplish when I was invisible, and what I was going to do now. I didn't want to hide anything, and told them everything about my plans. For the first time in my new life, I felt determined, and I really liked that feeling. After school, several guys asked me to meet in private. One of them was Rob. I actually asked him to come with me, but I did that just to tell him that I was not interested in a guy fond of humiliating other people. After that, I just walked away, leaving him stunned and miserable. My pathetic previous life was over. Now I felt really strong and powerful. I was sure that the time spent invisible helped me to understand who I really was. Sometimes you really need to just disappear in order to find yourself. Now I'm sure of that. The invisible episode helped me greatly. Now I was more than visible, and I intended to keep it that way forever. In the streets, I often met people whom I helped before. Each and every one of them thanked me, and I felt stronger with each such meeting. Some journalists from the popular TV channel were interested in my story and came to my house to see me. They wanted to know everything about me. After all, it wasn't every day that a common girl disappeared, turned into an invisible superhero, and then turned back to normal. Besides, I managed to become a popular vlogger at the same time. An impressive list of achievements, to be sure. I knew that such an interview would only help me to become a star. So I told them everything, and woke up famous the very next morning. Earlier, all the TV channels were discussing the antics of an invisible one. Now I became visible, yet they were still talking about me. I needed no mask anymore. I was popular without being a superhero, and I wanted to use that popularity for the greater good. A year has passed since then, and now I'm a living legend. I dedicated my whole life to helping people. Thanks to my fame, I was able to organize several charitable foundations. I've helped a great number of people, and I did so without any superpowers. Guess that being invisible was just a trigger that helped me to become the person I've always wanted to be. Unfortunately, now my friend Rita is in danger. Not so long ago, she called me and told me that some stranger was stalking her. I didn't attach any importance to her story, and I was wrong. Now Rita's in the hospital. The stranger attacked her and got away with no repercussions. Guess now it's my duty to do something about that dangerous stranger.